But let's be clear about the circumstances which led to that moment on Saturday. This tragedy occurred as a result of a deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders in Minnesota.
All right, so stop for a second there. Rewind what you just heard in your head, okay? Did you feel it? That little maybe spike of anger or defensiveness? That's not random. That was actually engineered. I'm Alan Stafford, and I've spent 3 decades in marketing learning how to influence people, how to bypass resistance, and how to make you feel before you think. Now I'm on your side of the table, teaching you to see the game so you can't hopefully be played here. And today we're doing something a little different. I'm going to take a single press briefing and show you exactly how it's constructed to bypass your critical thinking. We'll do this frame by frame and technique by technique. But first, I need to be clear about something, okay? We're not here to debate the politics. I don't care if you're left, right, or somewhere in the middle. This isn't about who's correct. This is about how you're being persuaded by the media, the pundits, and the politicians. I'm just the referee. I call the fouls. I don't pick the teams, okay? So let's get started. All right, now let's break down what just happened to your brain when you were listening to that. You were given basically a villain before you were given facts.
Of a deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders.
Deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders. That's not an investigation update. That's actually a verdict delivered before the trial. So your brain craves closure. Uncertainty feels like, well, danger. So when someone fills that meaning gap for you, your brain relaxes. It stops searching for other explanations. It accepts the frame. See, this technique is called information priming. You prime the pump before the water flows. So you frame the story before the facts arrive. And once that frame is set, every new piece of information gets filtered right through it. Watch for it. We're just getting started, my friend. All right, so now I want you to listen very carefully to this next clip. I'm going to play it, and I want you to catch something very specific, a contradiction hiding in plain sight. Ready? Here it is.
The administration is reviewing everything with respect to the shooting, and we will let that investigation play out. They have also used their platforms to encourage left-wing agitators to stalk, record, confront, and obstruct federal officers who are just trying to lawfully perform their duties, which has created dangerous situations threatening both these officers and the general public and Minnesotans alike. This is precisely what unfolded in Minneapolis on Saturday morning.
Okay, so did you catch that? I mean, in the same breath, she said, we're going to let the investigation play out, and here's exactly why it happened. Inflammatory rhetoric. See, you can't claim uncertainty and certainty simultaneously. That's not logic. That's actually just a script. This is what I call the investigation gap. It's the space between we don't have the facts yet and but here's who to blame anyway. See, and skilled communicators exploit that gap constantly. Here's your critical thinking tool for this one. Whenever a spokesperson uses a tragedy to attack a rival's words rather than discuss the actions of those actually involved, they've basically pivoted. They've moved from investigation to indictment without any evidence in between. See, the question being asked was about what happened. The answer given was about who to blame. That's not information. That is framing the conversation. So here's your pause technique for this one. Whenever you're watching someone respond to a question, ask yourself, are they describing facts or are they assigning blame? See, if they're assigning blame while claiming they don't have facts, your critical thinking alarm should be screaming at you because you're not watching journalism at this point. You're watching narrative construction in real time. All right, this next one is important, okay? It's going to feel uncomfortable because it involves real victims and real grief. But that's exactly why we need to talk about it. Because grief is being used as a weapon here, not to honor the victims, but to stop you from thinking. Watch this.
The pain of American angel families was ignored and dismissed because it undermined the Democrat narrative. Innocent Americans like Jocelyn Nungray, Laken Riley, and Rachel Morin are just a few of the many victims savagely murdered by illegal alien criminals.
Angel families, Laken Riley, Jocelyn Nungray. These are real people, real tragedies, and it's real grief. But here's my question. Why are we talking about them right now? The question was about a shooting that happened 2 days ago. These cases are from months ago. None of these people were involved in Saturday's incident. So why bring them up? Well, because this creates what I call the moral equivalence trap. Here's how it works. See, By invoking these grieving families, the spokesperson has now set up a psychological tripwire. So if you question anything about the tactics used in Minneapolis, the narrative frames you as being against these victims, against these grieving families. I mean, you're not allowed to ask questions anymore because asking questions means you don't care about murdered children. Hey, folks, that's not logic. That's emotional blackmail. Let me explain what's happening in your brain right now, okay? High intensity emotions like grief and fear activate your amygdala. That's your brain's alarm system, the emotional center. And when your amygdala is firing, it literally inhibits your prefrontal cortex, which is your logic center, from actually thinking or working. You can't think critically while your brain is processing the concept of a murdered child. That's not weakness. That's not a character flaw. That's just biology, and they're counting on it. This is why emotional pills are so effective in political communication. They're not trying to convince your thinking brain. They're trying to bypass it completely, entirely. So here's your pause technique. See, when you feel a surge of emotion during a policy discussion, pause, literally pause, take a breath, then ask yourself, is this emotion relevant to the question being asked, or is it being used to prevent me from asking the question? The emotion is real, the grief is real, but the question of whether it's relevant to the current discussion, that's where your critical thinking needs to kick in. All right, now we're going to look at something subtle but incredibly powerful, the words being chosen. You see, language isn't neutral. Every word carries weight, good or bad. And skilled communicators know exactly which words to use to shape your perception before you've even processed that information. Watch the labels in this clip.
Where you have elected Democrat officials across the country who are encouraging left-wing agitators and crazy people to go out and unlawfully obstruct lawful immigration enforcement.
All right, did you catch the label shift? We went from protesters to left-wing agitators to crazy people. Let's break it down. See, protester is a constitutionally protected citizen exercising First Amendment rights. You might disagree with them, but they have a legal status. They're citizens. Agitator is a threat, someone causing trouble, someone who needs to be dealt with. And crazy? Well, crazy is just is subhuman, not rational, not worth engaging with, dismissible. See, the facts haven't changed, the people haven't changed, only the framing has changed. And that framing is doing work on your brain, my friend. This is called loaded language, or in this case, dysphomism. That's when you deliberately choose negative terms to describe something, basically the opposite of euphemism. And it's incredibly effective because it happens so fast. So by the time your conscious mind processes the information, your emotional reaction has already been shaped by the label. So here's your critical thinking tool. I call it the label test. Strip the adjective, strip the loaded language. What's left? Left-wing agitators attacked becomes people approached. Now ask, does my emotional reaction change when I use neutral language? If yes, then the language was doing the persuading, not the facts. The facts should speak for themselves. When they can't, that's when the loaded language shows up. And here's your pause technique. When you hear charged language, mentally replace it with neutral language, okay? Agitators attack becomes people approached. Radical activists becomes people who disagree. Thugs just becomes people. Does your emotional reaction change then? If so, the language was the manipulation, not the event. All right, so this next one is a masterclass in misdirection, and I need you to pay very close attention because it's going to sound convincing. It's going to feel relevant. But I want you to ask yourself one question while you watch. Were any of these people involved in Saturday's incident? Here's the clip.
Many of them have convictions for assault, driving under the influence, fraud. This individual here I'm looking at was an aggravated felon with multiple convictions for larceny, fraud, and forgery of checks, vehicle theft, drug possession, domestic assault, inflicting bodily harm on another, criminal convictions of larceny, identity theft, again, charged with driving under the influence. These are extremely dangerous people.
Child predators, murderers, aggravated felons. Pretty damning list, right? Makes you feel like, oh, Minneapolis is harboring dangerous criminals. Makes you feel like maybe the aggressive tactics are justified. But here's the question. Were any of those people involved in Saturday's incident? No. Zero. None of them. So why list them? This is what I call the cloud of guilt. See, you flood the zone with negative associations until the target is surrounded by a psychological fog. Your brain processes association faster than logic. So when Minneapolis is mentioned alongside murderer and child predator repeatedly, those concepts become neurologically linked, even if you consciously know they're unrelated. This is literally how prejudice is manufactured in real time, folks. You're watching it happen right there, right before your eyes. And here's what's happening in your brain. See, your brain creates associations automatically. It's a survival mechanism. Let's say you see a snake near a rock. Your brain links rock and danger. Even if the snake leaves, you'll feel uneasy around that rock. Political communicators exploit this constantly. They put concepts next to each other, knowing your brain will link them together. Minneapolis criminals, Minneapolis danger, Minneapolis threat. The connection doesn't have to be logical, it just has to be repeated. So your pause technique? Well, when someone lists crimes or criminals during a discussion, ask one simple question. Were any of these people actually involved in the incident being discussed? If no, you're witnessing guilt by association, and your brain is being trained to make connections that doesn't exist in reality. So don't let them do your thinking for you. All right, last technique, and this one is sneaky. See, we're going to watch a clip where two completely unrelated issues get linked together. And I want you to notice what that linking does to the national audience. Here it is.
But that should not be at the expense of government funding for the American people, which would include, as you know, Alex, FEMA funding. And we are in the midst of the storm that took place over the weekend, and many Americans are still being impacted by that. So we absolutely do not want to see that funding lapse. And
did you catch the link? Minneapolis resistance, FEMA funding, government shutdown. Here's the hidden message being sent to the national audience. If the people in Minnesota or Minneapolis keep resisting, you might lose your disaster relief. This is strategic linking. You take two unrelated issues and connect them to manufacture a conflict of interest. Suddenly, someone in Florida who's never thought about Minneapolis has a reason to be angry at Minneapolis because their hurricane relief might be threatened. All right, let's bring it all together. See, in the last few minutes, we've watched a single press briefing, and we've identified 6 distinct manipulation techniques. There was information priming, which is assigning blame before facts arrive. The investigation gap, which is claiming uncertainty while delivering certainty. Appeal to emotion, using grief to shut down critical thinking. Loaded language, choosing words that do the persuading for you. Guilt by association, creating connections that don't even exist. And strategic linking, basically manufacturing conflicts of interest. 6 techniques, 1 briefing. And this is just 1 briefing on 1 day. This is happening constantly on every network from every political perspective. The techniques are the same, only the targets change. So here's what I need you to understand. Okay, see, gaslighting works because it feels like common sense. It doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like someone finally telling it like it is, but it isn't. It's a carefully engineered script designed to bypass your logic and hijack your emotions. See, you're not stupid for falling for it. You're human. We're all human on this. Your brain was designed for a world where these techniques, well, didn't even exist. The problem isn't your brain. The problem is that other people have the instruction manual to your mind. But now you have it too. So here's your homework. Next time you watch a press briefing, a political interview, or a cable news segment, I want you to count something. Count the answer to pivot ratio. How many direct answers versus emotional redirects are there? So if the question is about data and the answer is about feelings, you're being manipulated. If the question is about this incident and the answer is about that incident, you're being manipulated. If the question is about about actions and the answer is about identity, you're being manipulated. Count the pivots. It'll change how you watch everything. Hey, if this video helped you see behind the curtain, do me a favor, share it with someone who needs it. Someone who's been feeling like something's off but couldn't put their finger on what it was, okay? And if you want to go deeper, check out my other videos on the Pundit Playbook or my other critical thinking videos. I'm Stafford. Stay sharp, my friend. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.